on here, I want you to understand a simple truth, loud and clear, and then we're going to open up for questions. If the guy that you have in your life is a liar, he doesn't care about you. Now, this is really weird because people are like, but he cares about me because he says he loves me. Well, what does love actually look like in your relationship? If you're in a relationship where the guy is a liar, where the guy is not willing to be vulnerable, where the guy is not working on himself consistently to change, grow, and develop and become a better man, you're with a guy that doesn't care. You're actually with a guy that you have no relationship. It's just a facade. It's a situationship. It's someone that you wish was how he used to be or how he originally showed up, but the fact of the matter is you're with a guy that doesn't care. One of the biggest traits inside of narcissism, narcissistic abuse, toxic, abusive assholes is a fact of being a liar. Typically because he's lying to you, he's cheating on you, he's doing all different types of things to use and abuse you and making you feel like you're the crazy one. Because then you find yourself apologizing for decisions he made. You find yourself apologizing for choices that he did. You find yourself apologizing for things that you didn't do anything at all, but he continues to find blame upon you. Tonight we're going to be talking about toxic people, liars, cheaters, abusers, narcissists, and how it's affected you. But also to try to be able to give you answers, give you tips, and give you pieces of advice to be able to help you actually heal, grow, and change who you are. So drop any questions you have in today down below in the comments. We're just going to go back and forth with kind of like a Q&A to be able to start answering questions and talk through this piece of how do you know you're with a toxic person? How do you actually heal from a toxic person? What's actually going on? What's actually real? What's actually true? If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. I've been on this channel for a couple of years now to let people know what narcissistic abuse is, but then also to coach women out of toxic relationships. I work with a few guys that have raised their hands and they're like, hey, I'm like you. I've shown up as an abusive asshole and I don't want this life anymore. I want to be different. But the majority of people that I work with are women that reach out being like, hey, I'm never going to get closure. I can't figure out how to get closure. How do you actually do it? We would talk through that and be able to show them how they get closure from themselves, not from the narcissist, not from the toxic guy, because he doesn't care about you, which is why he's continued to lie. Sometimes people ask, like, why would he continue to lie when it's producing this shame and guilt? Why would he keep doing it? Well, narcissist oftentimes is doing it even by habit or almost by instinct over a period of time. And it's like, I don't want to tell the truth because if I tell the truth, then I have to admit that I'm not a good person. I want to believe I'm a good person, so I'm going to keep lying to keep that facade. A lot of narcissists are going to keep the lie going no matter what, even if you have proof. If you have proof that, hey, you've been cheating on me, he'll gaslight you, he'll excuse it away, make you feel like you're the crazy, you're the stupid one, and then continue on with life. And even if you have proof, he wouldn't admit it. Have you seen that before? Like if you have proof and you show it to him of like, hey, I can't believe you did this. I didn't do that. What are you talking about? You're overreacting. You're thinking about it too much. You're too critical. He'll say anything and everything to be able to get you to not believe that what he did was actually wrong or what he did was actually a lie because he doesn't want to own up to it. Even if you had proof, he still typically would not admit the truth because then you have to admit that he's wrong. When you're in a toxic relationship, you get to a place where you feel completely confused. The problem is you get to a place where you get overwhelmed. And it's not just the stress from work and the stress of life and the stress of kids and the stress of all the other pieces. It's actually just him. It's the late nights. It's the confusing conversations that seem to go on for hours and just oscillate back and forth. And you're wondering, I don't even know what we're even talking about anymore. But you continue to go into these conversations thinking maybe he'll finally understand. Maybe he'll finally get to the place that he can see and understand you. And he never does. In fact, it just keeps happening over and over and over. Many times when people are in a toxic relationship, they get to a place where they're completely drained, simply because they're like, I've tried to get through to him and he just doesn't seem to understand. Do you feel like you're just like hitting your head up against a brick wall? That's what it can be like when you're talking to a narcissist and to a liar, because they're not going to admit. They're going to continue running around over and over and over. Yeah, you're too insecure. That's a popular one as well. You're too insecure. Like, why would you be this way? You find a million different phrases that narcissists or toxic people to use just to be able to confuse you, just to be able to manipulate the conversation. I want to tonight talk about toxic relationships, how to heal, how to actually grow, how to develop from. And the guy in your life, if he's showing up as a liar, if he's not telling the truth, if he's not being vulnerable, if he's not showing consistent change, leave. You need to get out of a relationship and you need to pull yourself out. And it's hard. Because there's fear about, I don't know what's going to happen. But there's also fear about, wait a second, I have to rebuild who I am because all of my identity has been tied to this guy with these toxic highs and these toxic lows. And you get to a place that you start to feel like, well, who would I be without this guy? How could I even leave? How would it even be possible? You start to tell yourself you can't. You start to tell yourself it's impossible. There's no way I could actually do it because you're afraid of disentangling yourself from this guy because, let's face it, you're addicted. You're addicted to the guy that's in your life. You're addicted to the highs, and you're just trying to get through the lows so you can get back to the high. And it happens over and over and over. And he plays this cycle, and he plays you like a fiddle, going back and forth, making sure that you stay stuck. How many of you feel like you're stuck in a relationship where he just isn't showing up? He doesn't really seem to care. Maybe his actions show you one thing and his words say a completely different thing. Drop some questions, drop some comments in the chat. This whole piece of toxic relationships, people don't understand how hard it is to be free, but also that there's not a whole lot of people that understand you. You try to talk to friends and family and they're just like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just give up on this guy? Like, why don't you just move on? And you're like, well, that would be great, but I can't figure out how to do that because the trauma bond kind of like fucks with your head a little bit. It gets into your head and it makes it so it's like extremely difficult to be able to figure out what's going on. Trauma bond is made up of a couple different things: hope and potential, cognitive dissonance, intimate reinforcement. All those three things combined together produces this addictive cocktail that keeps you coming back to the bar to drink from him every single time. And you get to the place where even if you go no contact, you leave. You're like, hey, I'm done. I'm going to block this guy. Still lives rent-free in your head because you can't even get rid of the rumination. How many of you feel like this is part of you? You're stuck in the trauma bond. You're stuck in the confusion. You're stuck wondering what's even real. What questions do you have today? Drop any questions down below. Let's talk through some of this for you. Like, what's real? What's right inside the relationship? When I didn't close the blinds all the way, my Prince Charming said, you can be so thick sometimes. Yeah. Like, a lot of times they'll find anything and everything, like tiny things. Doesn't have to be anything big. It'd be like tiny things to try to degrade and devalue you. Like, you didn't do that right. Early on in our marriage, there's a piece that my wife remembers vividly. I don't remember as much because I blocked it, but there's a piece that she remembers vividly about how I would get on to her about not folding the clothes right. Like, how stupid was that? But I would have this like little thing where I'd be like, well, you didn't fold my shirts right. You didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. Small, tiny things to try to be able to poke and prod of like, wait a second, you're not good enough. A narcissist always keeps moving the bar. He keeps moving the bar ahead of you. And you're like, well, maybe I can do all these things. And you do all the things that he says that he wants you to do, and then he moves the bar again. It's moving the goalpost. And the reason why he does this is because he can't live with the fact that you could actually be good enough. Because if you were, you'd leave. If you saw your worth, if you saw your value, you'd realize, I don't need to be in this relationship. He'll do nice things for me, but zero affection. Yeah, because he's trying to be able to do things to be able to win your affection, but not have to give affection. Do narcissists masks fall after they get what they want? A lot of times they do. A lot of times they get what they want, and then he's like, okay, well, now I don't have to hold that anymore. That could be coming back into your life. It could be a Hoover. I Hoover you, I get back in the relationship, get what I want, get back out. Right? Go for one person, go to the next person. Narcissists oftentimes will have a mask fall around typical situations that are life-changing events, okay? So typical times you're gonna see a mask fall, or you're gonna see behind the true colors. Engaged, married, moving in together, getting pregnant or having the kid. Those are like some of the typical. There's like one or two others, but those are like some of the typical ones, okay? Of like when those life events happen, oftentimes the mask will come down. Why? Because he doesn't have to keep it up anymore. The reason why the narcissist keeps up a mask for such a long period of time is he has to get you used to who that version is. He's putting up a fake facade. He's giving you like, hey, here's the fairy tale version of me. Fall in love with that. And you're like, okay, I'm in love with that. And he's like, okay, phew, I'm tired of wearing that costume. I don't need it anymore. Now that I've got you, now I can do what I want. Then he thinks that he owns you. You see what I mean? This week I was dissuaded from leaving because life will be difficult. She knows someone who left and regretted it. I want to leave, but I'm a homeschooling mom and I haven't worked for many years. Also an immigrant, so I don't have a support system. So it's super hard when you don't have a support system because you need to find someplace that you can go or a way that you can support yourself, right? Because that's like one of the big pieces. Inside of this, like one of the goals then is helping you like shift your mindset and helping you actually set solid boundaries and barriers in the relationship. Because if you don't have some type of boundaries or barriers, it's going to be difficult to be able to push those and like keep your sanity while all the craziness is going on. A lot of times toxic relationship will continue to try to push you back, continue to try to hide you from everybody else, isolate you, try to make sure that no one else is around to be able to support you, to be able to help you in that. My ex is stalking me. He has a girlfriend. Why doesn't he just go away? Big piece is power and control. So you could have a virtual stalking, right? Where you could have them just like watching all your stories. You could have them watch them on dummy accounts, like all different types of things to try to see what is she doing. And it's a weird reason of why. A lot of times one of the reasons why is a narcissist is like knowledge is power, when it really isn't. Because if it's not used, right? But this knowledge being power piece of like, if I know everything about you, then I can control you, I can manipulate you, I can show up. I just feel better about knowing everything in your life kind of thing. So sometimes you'll have a narcissist that will stalk, even though if he doesn't want to be with you and even if he's not making moves towards you, but because he just wants to have that control. The control of like, I own you, or I have information on you, or I know what you're doing, or I'm tracking you, all those type of things. There's a lot of other reasons, but a big piece of it inside of him having another girlfriend and still stalking you is one, that he doesn't respect her, and it also shows he doesn't respect you. Then it's a piece of like the high of like, let me continue to have my cake and eat it too. Let me continue to do something that is bad. Let me keep doing something that's exciting, right? Like he could just get an adrenaline high of going to the place of like stalking you. With that, and with it going on for such a long period of time, like I would go the entire legal route. Like try to see if you get a trespass order, try to get something like up there. That way, as soon as he breaks it, you call the cops, and it just keeps happening until he finally goes away to jail or whatever might happen. Because inside of this, you got to be able to have some boundaries there of like, hey, you're not going to keep doing this to me. But that's one of the hard pieces. A lot of times they'll lock on and they won't give up unless you go the legal route or do like legal action. What other questions do y'all have inside of dealing with a toxic relationship, trying to heal from it? You're at a place where you're just wondering, is it me? How many of you wonder, like, is it me? Am I the toxic one? Am I the narcissist? Because he keeps telling me that. Like, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I made him, or maybe I forced him to do this. How many of you feel that confusion? Drop a comment in the chat. How many of you feel, like, lost of, like, I don't really know what is right, what is wrong, what is happening? How many of you feel just confused? Drop a comment in the chat. Like, what's going on? You got, like, 65 people on right now. Like, what's going on when you're watching this, when you're thinking through your relationship? What are you struggling with? How do you just say goodbye and freaking ignore them? So it's hard to be able to say goodbye and do ignore, for sure. A big piece is going no contact so you don't have any interaction with, but that's mainly to help you heal. The ignore piece has to go back to like what you're actually believing. And typically, the only reason why you'll have the door open is because you want to have closure, or you want to get something from him, or you want to still have contact, or maybe he'll change. Different pieces that make you still believe in him. When the reality is there's not any actions or demonstration that you actually can believe, because if you look at all the actions in the demonstration, he's been toxic, he's been abusive, he's been an asshole to you. So inside of this, we have to be able to say, okay, what has actually happened? This is why I'll have people write stuff down. Write down 25, 50 things that he's done to you, 50 things that you've been affected by him. And then start to remember, oh, this is why I'm not contacting him anymore. This is why I'm not going back. This is why I'm not interacting with him. Because otherwise there's a disconnect between your head and between your heart. That's part of the trauma bond. It's the addictive piece that keeps pulling up. And it's not just by happenstance, it's intentional. He creates the trauma bond. He creates it by this push and pull, this back and forth, the cognitive dissonance of like, what do I believe, his words or his actions? The intermittent reinforcement, the highs and the lows. Like, it's gonna be really great and it's gonna be really bad. And when it's really bad, you're like, oh. But then he knows it can't stay really bad for super long. He's gotta make it good for a moment so that you stay just a little bit longer. It's all manipulation, it's all control. If you're dealing with this addictive piece and you're not sure how to be free, it's one of the things we work on, it's one of the things we help you understand. If you want to see a video just from me and also my wife, Kayla, talking about our story, talking about what's happening, and be able to book a call so you can see how you can be free, you can go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. There's an opportunity there. There'll be a link down below just so that you can actually see how you can be free and see other people that have been free as well. I feel duped, still mad, and my life was ruined, 17 plus years wasted. A lot of times people will feel stupid. Like they'll look back and they'll be like, man, I'm so stupid. Why didn't I see this? Why didn't I do this? Part of it is you didn't have the education you do now. And unfortunately, you didn't have part of the life experiences to know that this guy was a toxic and abusive person. The other piece is it's easy to start beating yourself up about things in the past. And you have to pause for a moment. You have to give yourself some grace. And when I mean you have to give yourself some grace, you don't look back at yourself when you were 2 or 3 and be like, man, I was so stupid because I didn't understand math or I didn't understand algebra. No, because you hadn't learned it yet. But inside of a toxic relationship, once you start getting some healing and once you start getting some awareness, you then look back on the relationship and you're like, oh, I can't believe I didn't see that. Yeah, you didn't see it because you couldn't have seen it at that time because you didn't have the knowledge. You didn't have the idea, the thought patterns, the things that were happening. You didn't have an idea there. So give yourself some grace inside the piece of beating yourself up in the past. Take a look at where you are now. Where do you want to go? What are the next steps to be able to help you move one step at a time? Well, throwing away every card and gift my ex gave me helped destroy the shared fantasy. 4 months, no contact, longest time in 6 years. I've spoke to him. Kimberly would love to help you with that. So if you go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough, like book a call, grab a call and let's jump on so we can actually walk you through a plan. But yes, it's going to help to be able to get rid of every card and every gift. It doesn't mean it's going to heal you though. Like that's what I just need to be really upfront. And the reason why I'm saying it doesn't just mean that it'll heal you, because I know people that have gone no contact and thrown everything away and they're still trauma bonded. Because if the emotional ties and connections aren't cut by what you actually believe and by subconscious programming, otherwise you'll continue to still have a craving. You'll continue to go back. You'll continue to still try. There's no cost to the call. There's an application just so I know a little bit more about you, so we know if it's a good fit, and then you can book a call. So the calls are free. Just have to watch the video and go through the application. I've been writing them for years. Sadly, you're right though. He is very manipulative and he's a pathological liar. I can't deal with it. You really just have to love yourself for real. I mean, a big piece is like when you don't have boundaries, you don't respect yourself. Like when there's not a boundary in your life for your own healing, for your own growth, for your own sanity, it shows you that you don't respect yourself. And if instead you give everything and everything else to everybody, but you don't actually have a boundary for you, it just shows that you don't respect yourself. So part of the self-respect has to come back to a confidence piece, has to come back to a clarity piece, has to come back to you actually showing up for you keeping agreements with yourself. You can't truly love anyone else unless you truly love yourself. And I've heard that so many times, but it's so true. It lets you not let people treat like shit. Yeah, 100%. Like there has to be a piece where you see your value and your worth. And the narcissist typically takes the time to be able to dismantle that, to be able to make you feel like you don't have any worth, you don't have any value. And then it puts this confusion, this doubt, this fear in your life of like, I don't really know what to do. I don't know what's going on. And as a result, you don't do anything. You just stay stuck. You stay confused. What questions do you guys have as you're tuning in? If you guys are new, my name is Ben Taylor. I work with women who've been stuck in toxic relationships to help them be free. Mentally and emotionally, physically, like whatever it takes to get them free, it has to be built from a level of confidence, has to be built from a level of clarity. Most of the time when people are in a toxic relationship, they're so confused. They're so filled with like the fog, the brain fog. They have no clue what to do. So if I can give you clarity and help you see closure, then it helps you actually see the path forward for you. We have a child with him. It's difficult to heal. 100%, but that's why the boundaries matter, and that's why having a very set rule for communication and interaction is huge. So like drop-offs, figuring out a way so that he doesn't see you, doesn't interact with you, making the drop-offs like very limited, so that if you swap kids back and forth, he's not interacting with you. That's the only reason why he wants the kids, to interact and cause you pain, or interact with you, control you, different things like that. It took 10 long years before I put the puzzle pieces together. He's a malignant narcissist. Way back in 2014 is when I met him. Wasn't aware that narcissist was, except that it pertained to vain people. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know. Like there's been a resurgence of people talking about narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and it's a new thing. And people, like a lot of times because I'm in the content so much, I forget that people don't know. Because I think, hey, a lot of people are aware, but like most people are not aware of what it actually is. Most people are not aware of how it affects. I've been through so much with my ex-husband. It's really taken a toll on my mental health tremendously. It all began in 2020, which led to divorce and a horrible custody battle with our 3 boys. Monique, yeah, dealing with the custody battle is like difficult. Is that over or is it still going? Because sometimes that can last forever. Would love to talk to you, love to help you with that. Like dealing with narcissists inside of like the court and the custody piece, like a lot of times you have to not necessarily manipulate, but you have to be very, very careful about what you ask for and what you're trying to get. The reason why I say that is because a lot of times if you try to be upfront of like, well, this is what I want, that's the one thing you won't get. Oftentimes the narcissist is looking out for his money, he's looking out for his image, and he's gonna try to do anything and everything to make sure that he gets that. And so typically you'll see where he'll try to do anything he can to be able to lower his child support. So be like, let me get the kids as much as possible. Why? It's not because he cares about the kids, not because he even wants the kids. It's just because if he has the kids, then he has to pay you less money. S. Bryant, I already told you the call is free. You have to go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough, fill out an application, and then you can see about a call. Married to a porn addict. It's really hard for me to feel his love. Yeah, because unless he's willing to actually break the addiction, you're not really going to feel the love because he's giving it to everybody else. And that's the guy I dated before the recent one. Literally left one to run to his twin. Same horrible habits, just one showed love, one didn't. That's what's worse. Yeah. So a lot of times when you're with a toxic person, you'll go to another toxic person. Like we'll notice habits and patterns. Like we'll see one person that's been with like 4 narcissists. Why? Because her dad was a narcissist, or because growing up something happened. Like a lot of times you'll see patterns. You'll see different pieces that'll happen. He was granted full custody. His mother helped with her connections, hired a lawyer, and later found out his friends with the judge. Gosh, sorry about that. That's hard. Thanks for your help. So tired of the narc obsessing. He's obsessing over you, or you're obsessing over him? What is it? Sounds like a guy making guys seem out like they're terrible. Jonathan, welcome to the platform. If you're new here, my name's Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist who showed up toxic and abusive asshole for a long period of time. So as a result, a lot of this platform is helping women actually understand narcissistic abuse, find closure, and be able to move on and heal. So a lot of times the people that you might be talking to on here are not just me making guys out to be terrible, but just calling out guys of how they've lived and how I've lived. And as a result, it's helping people actually find closure and find ways to be able to heal. Can women be narcissists? Absolutely. Just not who I talk to on my channel. One, I'm not a woman, so I don't speak from that. I speak from what I know. And then 2, I don't work with men that have been abused by narcissistic women, and I don't work with female narcissists. Doesn't work out well, and it's not my cup of tea. I know who I work with, which is women that have been stuck in toxic relationships, and I also work with the guys who have been the narcissists, the cheaters, the liars, the abusive assholes, to help them actually reset their life and show up honest, if they're willing to actually try. Most guys aren't. My dad was horribly narcissistic, and I ended with men just like him. Yeah, because the image in your mind of what marriage is supposed to be, of what that leader is supposed to be, of what the dad's supposed to be, that image of men has gotten skewed. So until you start to shift that and change that, all of them will continue to do that. Did somebody steal your Lucky Charms? No, I don't have any Lucky Charms. He is obsessing, and my other ex-narcissist asked to move in. I forgot he was a narcissist, I guess. I didn't know it was a narcissist recently. Okay, gotcha. Fair enough. I appreciate you not blowing up. Now you're good. I don't mind. I get a lot more aggressive questions on here at times. So if I'm totally fine answering and dealing with any type of questions, as long as they're not like attacking or like abusive. I don't really care. We've answered a lot of random questions and a lot of like just raw questions, I guess you could say. So yeah, a lot of what I do, I've tried before. So think of it this way: in past almost 4 years of like content making and everything, I've had maybe like 3 narcissistic women reach out. It's just they don't reach out, and I don't really work with them. And then I've had more men that have been abused by females, like probably like maybe 10 out of all over the years that have reached out. I really don't get a ton of them, but the ones that I have, flake, I guess that's the best way to put it. Like they'll start working with me and then they just disappear. And I got to the place where I just started to see too many patterns. I don't really want to work with them. So I work with women that want to heal, and I work with guys that have lied or cheated and want to be able to turn their life around. You know, a few narcissists have very similar traumatic backgrounds. Is there a connection? A lot of times there's different levels, different aspects of trauma that might have produced narcissistic tendencies or narcissism in another person. It's not always like cut and dry of it being specific, different types of trauma, but it can be there. Why do I know so many narcissists? It's easy. So it's a piece that if you don't actually heal and work on establishing the boundaries and the self-respect, you'll start to attract them. Like it'll be a piece that like even your energy putting it out will start to attract different narcissists and toxic people into your life because of what you're willing to accept. When you start setting up different boundaries and different rules and different things that are in your life so that you're like, that's not who I am, that's not who I want to be, it'll actually start to repel different people versus attract them. I still don't feel mentally and emotionally safe around. I believe my father is a narcissist. Growing up, I watched my mom going through verbal, mental, and physical abuse. Narcissist, yeah. So like a lot of times you'll see it like early on, and that's a big piece. Like if your father is a narcissist or you had a mother with narcissistic traits, different things like that, a lot of times you'll pick partners that are very narcissistic as well. Narcissists can't be rehabilitated. Popular opinion, I don't believe it's true. What I believe is that anyone can be healed and anyone can grow and develop and change if they're willing to be honest. Most narcissists are not willing to be honest. That's why most narcissists do not change. Do I think every single person or every single narcissist is irreparable? No, not at all. I don't think anybody's irreparable. I think it all depends on their willingness to do the work and their willingness to be honest. But I appreciate it. Every man in my life is a narcissist or extremely toxic, egotistical, womanizing, pretentious, lying, assholes, except my brothers. They're such good men. I swear I don't know how they're my dad's kids. So everybody like grows up different, and everybody has different experiences. Mom will never admit anything. Yeah, 100%. Continue to lie. He's not going to admit, even if you had proof, he wouldn't admit. Why? One, because he doesn't care about you. And two, he'd rather lie than feel guilt and shame. Okay? Like, that's the biggest thing. Narcissists are always like shame avoidant. They're running away from shame. So I was talking to a client the other day, and they were talking about like anger. And I was like, anger is not the problem. I was like, anger is the surface. What's underneath the anger is the story that you're telling yourself, the subconscious programming, the triggers, all the different pieces. So like for me, there was a big piece of anger and rage that underneath all of it was fear. That was it. There's a piece that like I had different fears about different things that I needed to work and solve to be able to deal with the anger. The anger was just the outworking of what was underneath. Like there's a million different pieces, and this happens with the abused because you start to have all different types of guilt and shame of all different aspects of the relationship, of what you put up with, of how it affected the kids, so many different things of like mom guilt, of like, wait a second, I have to go to work, and then I'm not present at home because I'm thinking about this guy, all this kind of stuff. But it's all based on what you're actually thinking inside. It's the subconscious programming. It's the piece inside. Great advice. Love the honesty. Appreciate it. They lie because they're ashamed of who they are. 100%. Like ashamed of who they are, ashamed of how they showed up, ashamed of different things. Like there's also just a shame of the incongruency, right? Because he knows that he's built a mask. He knows that you fell in love with a version of him that's not him. He put it out there hoping it could be him or wondering maybe he could get you. And then he's like, oh, yep, can't get that vulnerable. Can't actually go to that next level. So he has to break it off, shut it down, go to the next person. He broke up with me. Should I talk to him? I wouldn't. If he was toxic and abusive, like block him. Start focusing on you. Here's the thing. Most people think that when they need to come to healing and when they need to work on getting healed, that we're going to deal a ton with the narcissist. A little bit. But the majority of that needs healing is just you, which means it doesn't matter all that he's done. It doesn't matter all the things that have happened. What matters is how you actually think and process the abuse now. How you actually move forward with the triggers that happen today when he blows up your phone, or tomorrow when you run into him on the sidewalk. Like you getting to a place where you can actually heal, where you see him on the street and you don't think about him at all. You don't even look at him. You're just like, yeah, I'm past you. I've grown, I'm developed, and I'm not that person that would even accept you in my life anymore. That's what we're going for. You having like such clarity about what you need to do and move forward. I'm attached to him. So Fatima, like reach out. We'll love to be able to talk to you, because inside of that, what you'll have is you'll have a trauma bond, a piece that keeps you coming back to him over and over and over again, but it's not real. It's fake. It's manufactured. He's built this into you. Reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Listen to a video of myself, my wife, different clients talk about like what they've been through and where they are now. It'll give you just an opportunity to be able to see that there is a path to be able to heal, even if it feels like you're addicted to this guy, you're attached, and that you're never gonna have anything better. Lie, deflects, gaslights, crazy. I actually believe he goes to sleep, wakes up the next day, and it's like we never go back, always forward. Yeah, it's like a whiteboard. So like he goes to bed, the whiteboard erases, a new day, brand new day. Doesn't have to think about it. Compartmentalize, disassociate, push it away. Do narcissists have the capacity to love, or do they just not love anyone more than themselves? So they actually don't love themselves. That's a fallacy. A lot of people think that like narcissist like just loves himself. He's just full of himself. He loves the image of himself, but he doesn't actually love himself. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the shame and this guilt. Like healthy love would actually shove out the shame and the guilt. But narcissist isn't capable of love without dropping his ego. Big piece here. Okay, narcissist is not capable of love without dropping his ego. Think of you standing on one side of a building and him standing on another side of the building, and you've got this entire building in between. Now give each other a hug. Can't do it. Well, the building is actually ego that's separating the two of you. Until he's willing to start lowering the ego and actually put someone else's needs above his own, view someone else, love someone else, care for someone else. All of that comes from putting down the ego and saying like, hey, I actually want to choose you. I want to choose to be in this relationship. Love is a choice. My husband of my whole life cheated on me. I'm getting ready to move out and file for divorce. Your videos have helped me so much. Thank you so much. Mel, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that it's helped. Reach out. We walk a lot of women through the divorce process, not from a legal standpoint, from the aspect of like helping you navigate the craziness that's going to come, the triggers, the trauma, the frustrations, all the control piece. So reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Would love to be able to help you with that. Are there studies out there on victims of narcissistic abuse becoming narcissists themselves? No, because it doesn't happen. You can't. You can't become a narcissist just because you've been around a narcissist. The best you could have would you have, I typically call them narcissistic fleas. You pick up different traits or different pieces, but it doesn't mean that's who you are. Oftentimes it's different coping mechanisms or it's different aspects of like stuff that's happening for you to just be able to survive. right? Like you shut down your feelings and now you can't feel anymore. Why? Because you've been in survival mode for such a long period of time and you had to numb out so you could just function, so you could show up to work, so you could lead your team, so you could do what needed to be done for the kids. All of that had to happen, so you had to just shut off your emotions. I've got several ladies like that they've been struggling with that. Like one just feels an immense amount of anger and she shut off all of her feelings. She's like, will I ever feel all of my emotions again? I'm like, yeah, but we got to work through this piece by piece. We have to break the trauma bond. We have to get rid of the anger. All those pieces we can work through. The emotions will come back. It's just going to take time. Absolutely. Thank and respect to you regardless, 100%. I don't care about me, so you shouldn't either. What if he loves me, only wants to teach lesson, that's why he break up with me? What if he loves me, only wants to teach me a lesson, that's why he breaks up with me? So you need to understand that's not love. That's control, that's manipulation. That's not love. I love you, so I'm gonna break your heart and break up with you. What, to prove a point? To manipulate, to blackmail? That's not love. You have a screwed up version of love. I say that lovingly because I need you to understand, like, it's this piece that you have in your mind, like, oh, maybe he hurt me because he loves me. It doesn't work like that. Do you hold any degrees in psychology or degrees on human behavior? I do not. How to process that? Victor, what do we say? Why if I get her out of jail and I spent $1,000 doing it, we just got back together and she leaves me for an ex-boyfriend and tells me that she's in love with him and not me. How do I process that? So a huge piece inside of processing that. There's a lot. I get it. A big piece inside of processing it is like you're going to have to write down a lot of the facts because your brain isn't going to want to acknowledge it. It's going to want to ignore it. It's going to want to hide it, right? It's going to want to hide different traits, different tendencies, different things. But then it's also going to be you getting in touch with your feelings, your emotions of like what's actually going on inside. Like, what are you struggling with? What's the story that you're telling yourself? What's the subconscious programming that's happening that's putting yourself down? There's a million different aspects of it, but processing it has to come back to like internally. Typically, a lot of what we do goes back to the story you're telling yourself. Any advice on how to leave safely? The most dangerous time is when they know they are losing control. So a big piece inside of leaving safely, you have to be really careful because sometimes they can get more violent, they can get more toxic. But inside of this, I typically say like you have to build a plan and then you have to execute it without them knowing and you just have to go. Like, because when you think of it, like if you go and you're like, hey, I'm gonna leave you, right? This is typically gonna find a way to be able to keep you, typically gonna find a way to gaslight you, typically find a way to make you apologize for leaving, like tons of different things. You have to be able to build a plan and stick to it. And when you stick to it, then you go into a contact, you try to make sure that you've got a support system in place, tools and systems so that you don't actually go back. That's what a lot of times we'll get people inside of raw motivations that come to us simply because they're like, I want this to be the last time. I've already tried to leave him 7 times. Now, can you help me actually be the last time? And I'm like, yeah, let's work with it. Let's break the trauma bond. Let's give you a support system. Let's give you tools to be able to process the triggers, the emotions. We can help with that. If you guys are interested in knowing more about that, you can go to rawmotivations.com just to be able to understand like what I do. This year's been the worst only because I finally said no more, finding my worth, sticking to my determination that I won't allow him to wear me down and get his way. That's great. Like, continue to establish boundaries and putting barriers in between you and him. After going through everything, I'm now in a space where I'm now constantly on edge, irritated, resentful, and I definitely feel like I'm shut down phase for months. That is now scarring or scaring me. So Monique, reach out. That I'm not worried about, right? Because you recognize it and you see it, which means there's a ton that we can work with. A big piece inside of that is being able to give you tools to be able to process those emotions. Because all that stuff, on edge, irritated, resentful, all those things to be worked on, but they're also hiding stuff that's underneath, okay? When I stopped obsessing about the hurt and wanted him to acknowledge the hurt and disruptions when healing started, focus on rediscovering who I am, and what I want from you and children. Perfect, that's great. Why do narcissists move on relationship and randomly show up in places he knows you'll be? Oftentimes that's control and power over you, and being able to make sure that he still knows or can still trigger you. I feel like I'm going to remain this way and I don't want this for myself. Monique, you won't, definitely won't. I would love to work with you and be able to help you because I can show you tons of women that we've worked with that are no longer like locked up like that. Now I'm able to help children with children with confidence. That's awesome. Videos helped me so much over the past year. Just wanted you to know that. Thank you for sharing your side of this crazy disorder. Appreciate it. Thank you. My subconscious programming tells me to eat mozzarella sticks. Okay, well, I guess you're eating mozzarella sticks. How do I come back to me? Am I able to ever feel again because this numbness has hurt me and my children? I don't want to be numb anymore. Monique, 100%. 100%. We've seen this happen tons of times with different people that we work with, because inside of this, like going through this process, like you have to be able to process the emotions. Most people like run away from them. Most people hide them. Most people are like, maybe if I just ignore them, they won't be there. Maybe I'll just heal long term. It doesn't work like that. We have to be able to give you a tool to be able to release them and be able to process them. I just got out of court. I have my bank statement on my cell, but judge said I couldn't use it. I have to pay $3,700 in back child support. He said if I want to see my daughter, I have to pay. Gosh, I'm so sorry. It's rough when they're using like all those different pieces. You have your bank statement on yourself. Could you just like print it off? That's wild. Unfortunately, a lot of times narcissists will just be like very vindictive at that point, just like trying to like make you do whatever that they want you to do, and just be able to have that same power and control over you. Like if any of this piece resonates with you and you recognize, hey, I might be in a toxic relationship or I might be dealing with that, we'd love to be able to help you see and understand more. You can go to rawmotivations.com. You can click on the breakthrough call for women, just be able to see, hey, there's a video from me, there's a video from my wife, like there's a video of just like trying to understand like what is going on? How is this actually affecting you? What is happening, right? Is it possible to do that while still living in a household with them? 100%. Right now, I've got probably like 50% of people that are inside of my Thriver community that are inside the relationship. I've got one of the ladies that's one-on-one with me because we're working on even like some business stuff too. And she's in the relationship. So 100%. We've seen a lot of people that can heal inside of it. It's not easy. Like I would say like it's harder in one sense, but there's also this piece that if we can get you clear and get you clarity and start having good boundaries, then it's huge. Sometimes people have to start the healing process while they're in the relationship in order to even leave. Otherwise, they wouldn't leave. I'm 7 months pregnant with our second child. He's emotionally pulled away from me. He hasn't been emotionally present ever since he found out we were pregnant. I'm still very ill with preeclampsia. So when you're going through the process, like as best you could, I would try to see if you could like not even have him on the birth certificate. Because if you do that, it gives you just a slight one up and like trying to be able to separate with him just a little bit more. Can't leave while we're overseas. I can't fly while it's pregnant. That makes sense. Having this platform where we can hourly speak of our reality with no retribution, hear others refreshing and quite energizing. That's why everything I do, inside of the Thriver community, is groups, because you have to be around other people that are healing, that are growing, that are developing. Not necessarily people that are just commiserating, right? Because it doesn't really help if you just hear everybody's shit. But if you're able to actually see how people are winning and growing, developing, and you have that support of like, hey, I'm struggling today, and you have people reach out, like that's what's amazing about it. Do narcissists get worse as they age, or does the behavior calm down? Typically it gets worse because they just don't care. Like it's like their care-o-meter just dies more and more. It's kind of like, well, this is who I am, so just deal with it. A lot of times we'll see them get worse. We typically don't see narcissists get better with age. Obviously there's a chance someone could get better if they went to therapy, if they're honest, if they actually worked on this stuff. But if we're just talking like normal mainstream, yeah, it just typically gets worse. What other questions do y'all have? Any other questions tonight? If you guys want to understand a little bit more of what I do, but actually take the next step towards freedom, then I want to invite you to go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Just an opportunity there for you to be able to see and understand from myself, from other people, from my wife, like of what our story is, but also how to be able to help you find the path to actually find freedom. What is the end goal when you were unaware? Love, pursuit of happiness, looking for a certain way in society. I have BPD, I can understand somewhat. So what I would say, like the main goal, a big piece inside of narcissism, one of the aspects was like this fantasies, right? So like one of the fantasies was like looking for ideal love. The other piece was like being like successful or looking or acting a certain way inside of that. And then there's also just like the carnal piece of like, I just wanted when I wanted it kind of a thing. I was an emotional wreck. I'm so grateful for you showing me I'm not crazy. 100%, you're not crazy. A lot of times you want to feel like you're crazy because he's told you that. He's programmed that in. He's trained you to think that you're crazy, but you're not. Any other questions? Other questions y'all have tonight? Just want to answer any questions that you guys have. All right, we might wrap up for the evening then. So, got a couple of things I need to get done, and would love to be able to help you guys heal, grow, and develop who you are. If you want to book a call with me, the calls are free. You just go to rawmotivation.com. Watch one of the videos there because I want you to see at least what I do and be able to hear from me, hear from my wife. Then you just fill an application. If it seems like it's a good fit, then I'll give you the option to book. We can talk, we can see where you're at, and help you move forward. How would you recommend dealing with a narcissistic parent that refused to acknowledge wrongs? Same exact way you would with a regular narcissist. There's no difference. You just have to be able to understand like the aspect of just because they're family doesn't mean that you need to accept their abuse. Set boundaries. If they're not willing to listen to them, then have consequences. Did you have a favorite person as with BPDs? Not necessarily just like a favorite person, not the same as like BPDs. But there was like one that was like in the idealized stage and never got to the place of like being like de-idolized, right? Like the, can't think. I want to say podium, but that's not the right word. Like the can't think of the word. Things swiped out from underneath them, right? To like fall down, like that kind of thing never happens. Like that piece was like the closest with that. What don't they get help? Why don't they get help like you did? Majority of them don't want to be honest with themselves, don't want to deal with the guilt and shame. It's too scary, so they keep running from it. And they also don't admit that they're liars. I just got a new job. My first check, I'll be contacting Real Motivations. I've wanted to forever, but I've been out for 6 months. Hooked up like 2 months ago, and I'm still stuck. So be easy. Like when you do, check out Trap for Freedom. That's a really good option. It's one of like the cheapest options that we have out there just to be able to help you heal. It's a 30-day challenge. You can also add on some like breakthrough coaching calls as well. But that's called Trapped to Freedom. Just how it sounds, trappedtofreedom.com. I was raised in narcissistic alcoholic home, madness and chaos. Yeah. Mine has hid money last 5 years. What should I do first? Are you talking about like with like the leaving process? Like try to see if you can hide money, like try to have money, try to build like a plan, try to figure out where you're going to go, support system, things like that. Why do narcissists lie so much, even about the little things? And that time, pedestal, that's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't think of it. A lot of times by the time they like lie so much and it's so habitual, it's almost like knee jerk because it's been such a pervasive pattern for such a long period of time. It's not even just like, oh, I should lie today. Like it's just a habit at that point. And it's a habit because those big lies of like, let me hide from shame and guilt and things like that, they just happen with everything. Why does it seem like he truly loves his mom, dad, and sister unconditionally? He might because they're narcissistic. He might because they're empaths and they don't see who he actually is. He might because it makes himself feel better or it makes his image look good. Those are all options. I know I can't move forward with him because there's too much trauma and hurt. I gotta not love him and want him. Yeah, no, absolutely. So reach out. We'd love to be able to help you. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. If you guys want help with this, or if you're in the place where you're just confused, book a free call. You can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the breakthrough call, like just watch the video. That way you know at least what I do, fill an application. It'll give you an option to be able to book. One of the things I'm gonna be announcing tomorrow, really, tomorrow, really, I just kind of forgot. We've got an ebook that's out. It's over 63 pages. And when you book with me, one of the things I'm going to be doing this next week is sending that to you as well. So just a free option for you to be able to have more resources, more support, and things like that. So if it's a good fit and we book, we'd love to be able to send that out. If you fill an application, you're like, hey, can I get a handle on the ebook? Would love to be able to send it to you, just to be able to help you actually heal, get some tools, some things underneath your belt to be able to help you move forward. So that's something that we're going to be announcing. It's technically going to be announced it tomorrow, but I was like, I might as well. So a big piece inside of that. Maybe I should have aborted you or given you up for adoption, something a narcissist mother would say to your child. Narcissist, BBD, toxic, like I don't really care about the label, but yeah, that is a toxic thing for a person to say to you. If I can help you at all, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. We'll love to be able to help you just move forward. If you don't remember that, you can just go to Raw Motivations. There's different links there. But I want to be able to provide just like next steps for you, just one piece at a time. So you all have a blessed, wonderful day. You all have a good evening. We'll see you guys later. I'll be around some tomorrow. We'll do a live again sometime tomorrow. But there we go. So y'all have a blessed, wonderful evening. Reach out if you need any help.